Part 2, Jimmy Carter. This is actually going to focus on his domestic policies. So it's going to actually be the bottom half of the paper. It's going to be pretty short and sweet. Jimmy Carter was a one-term president. So at the very top, let's go ahead and make sure we get this down. Jimmy Carter, Democrat, 1976 to 1980. Make sure you note he is a one-term president. And of course, D stands for Democrat. The essential question for Carter, and I know we've already talked about the economy of the 1970s because, oh my gosh, it is horrible. I mean, they came up with a word to describe this crappy economy. A stagnant economy with high inflation. Remember, what's the word? Stagflation. Oil shocks, Iranian revolution, oil embargoes, holy crap. Bread costs 4 times what it should. Gas prices as well. It's absolutely crazy. Essential question for Carter. Remember, big picture here because we're not spending very long on these presidents. Why did the economic and foreign policies of Jimmy Carter fail to meet the needs of America in the late 1970s? So let's go ahead and get started here. The very first thing I want to talk about, and in fact, you might even just do this right out up by little Jimmy Carter's picture up in the left-hand corner of his page. Little 1976 Jimmy Carter won the Democratic nomination because I'm going to be honest with you, he had never really been to Washington before. In fact, Jimmy Carter was from Georgia. Okay, I want you to know that. He was from Georgia, a little southern man, an outsider. I want you to write that down and notice it's in red. He was an honest man. He has fresh leadership. And think about who they just kicked out of the White House. They just kicked out Nixon. A liar. I am not a crook. Wait, no, you were. And then you have Ford, who pardoned the crook. So they're looking for a person they can trust. And just look at Jimmy Carter's picture. He looks like you could trust him, and he has an accent, okay? So with that, you of course trust him. He's like, now he's old. At the time I'm recording this, 2015, Jimmy Carter is still alive. He is the cutest little old man in the world. You just want to go up and hug him, but not too hard because you might break him. But they wanted that fresh leadership. He had a very narrow victory. Okay, the election of 1976 was a very narrow victory due to the social class and racial factors. A lot of the affluent, well-educated chose Ford. They wanted Ford to fix the economy, as the other half, socially, economically disadvantaged, wanted Carter, the civil rights, thinking that a Democrat would take care of a lot less fortunate people. The biggest thing that's going to screw up Ford, we'll talk about this in class, he made a statement that there's no Soviet domination in Eastern Europe. Well, détente's still kind of not there because Nixon's not there. And, you know, the USSR, that bear is still there. And when he makes that statement, man, Carter capitalizes on it and does a really good job. Oh my gosh. Totally forgot to tell you to write this by his picture. Jimmy Carter was from, what, do you remember what state I said? Georgia. And he was an honest politician. And let me tell you what he did for a living. He was a peanut farmer. In fact, his campaign slogan, totally good quiz question. Campaign slogan, Jimmy Carter, not just peanuts. Awesome campaign slogan for when you want to exude honesty after Nixon. So kind of interesting. Here's your electoral map. You have interesting fact here. Carter, Ford, interesting. Reagan is going to start coming up the chain. You'll notice that right there. But with that, very close victory, but nonetheless, Jimmy Carter wins. So let's talk about some of the policies that Carter put in place. The Community Reinvestment Act of 1977 is your very first thing. Go ahead and pause this, get it down. Then you can listen to me about it. It was designed to encourage commercial bankings and saving associations to help low and moderate income neighborhoods. That would actually be neighborhoods like the Caprock District. Medium, middle class, maybe even some low income areas. One thing that Carter said is that the Nixon and the Ford era, he said, you know, they had shifted a lot of the social programs from federal to state, and some states weren't handling it very well, and Carter was very much a great society type president. He's a Democrat, remember, like LBJ, like JFK, like FDR. And so he comes in and he says, I want to support these lower income neighborhoods. He supported the changing of the role of the government to regulate the free market to protect that abundance of liberty for all. It was a great society goal. So the one thing I really want you to make sure you understand or underline is it is designed to encourage banks to help out low to medium income neighborhoods. And when banks help out those neighborhoods, they give loans, low interest loans, which means a lot of your low income people, if they open businesses, can come medium income people, and medium income people can maybe even climb to the high income brackets. The Community Reinvestment Act is extremely important. In fact, Obama will have a similar law like this. Now, with that, other things we need to know: domestic disenchantment with Carter. Sorry, Carter entered office with no clear political philosophy or vision. Remember, he's just your good old boy from Georgia. He wants to bring honesty. He did deregulate the airline industry. That's kind of important, but not really. His attempts to reform welfare and Social Security failed. I probably should have made that red. So why don't y'all go ahead and make sure you put it down as well? Remember, he is that Democrat that more liberal thinking that we have to help out everyone. Welfare, Social Security, that's part of it. Medicare, Medicaid, stuff like that. But his attempts to reform that and to kind of fix that up again after kind of Ford dismantled a lot of the welfare in particular, it really does fail. And so they're kind of like, oh, he said he was going to help us, but he didn't really get it done. He also had no remedy for the soaring inflation, interest rates, and bank failures. Remember, stagflation? It's blowing up in his face, and he doesn't know what to do about it. I'll be real honest with you. I think that if I were around during Carter's time period, I probably would have a different opinion because he wouldn't have helped. He wouldn't have fixed things. But I think part of the problem was he was too good of a person to know how to work D.C. correctly. Nixon was a horrible person. You know that. I hate saying that on tape about a president, but I don't think was a very ethical person. Carter, and we're going to watch a video over him, he is unbelievably ethical. He is a Bible study teacher. He knows things. He is absolutely just not just Peanuts, good old boy. And I don't know if he wanted to play the games of Washington, D.C., and I really respect that as an American that thinks D.C. plays too many games with us these days. But when you can't play the game, you can't win it. And he really couldn't win it. There is one thing I really want to make sure you get down. In 79, he gave, and I want you to get this down, the National Malaise speech where he discussed the importance of conserving energy. But I'm going to be honest with you, he blamed Americans for creating the problem because they were basically power hungry for energy and oil. It absolutely backfired on him. He thought that Americans were going to love his straight talk because that's what he gave them in his campaign. But let me tell you something. They don't like to be told they're wrong. I get in trouble all the time for telling some of y'all, hey, you're failing. You need to pull your head out, dude, because if you don't start doing some of your work, you don't like it when I say that. Some of y'all at least respect it and turn it around, but you don't like being told the truth sometimes. Sometimes you need to hear it, though. They totally did not like him saying this. This National Malaise speech is one of the main reasons you notice 79, next year's an election year, didn't win. International dominance declined sharply in the 1970s, and I just have declining superpower right here. With that, it says Americans' increasing desires to avoid another Vietnam. The War Powers Act forced the president to consult Congress before sending troops in some of these situations we're going to talk about in the next video. But I'm going to be honest with you. Overall, the 70s start blowing up in his face due to the oil shocks, due to some of the foreign things we're about to talk about, and the escalating military costs and deficit spending that he has to do to try and pull the economy out of this stagnant inflation, basically blow up in his face as well. And you can't sustain a Cold War budget with a bad economy is what it comes down to. So that's going to be it for this one. I hope that's okay with you. I'm sure it is, because you want to get back to doing something else besides listening to my voice. But short recap on Domestic Community Reinvestment Act. It's making sure banks help out lower incomes. Disenchantment with Carter. It's just not working out for the poor guy. And also, the Cold War is starting to blow up, and a bad economy is really starting to plague him. And he tells the truth, which in politics, unfortunately, doesn't work out well for you. I really wish it did, because we need to hear it more often.